Class of 2021, we are so excited to welcome you to our event this evening. On behalf of President John Fry, our faculty and staff, I want to extend my most hearty congratulations to you. You did it. And while I know you had some help along the way, I want you to know just how proud we are of you and your peers. You are trailblazers. So I am Evelyn Thimba. I'm Senior Vice President for Admissions and Enrollment. And this year has just been very special for us. As my colleagues and I were reading your applications, we were able to see just how resilient, entrepreneurial, and motivated you all are. You are one of the most diverse classes ever admitted to Drexel. Students from around the world and around the country, just telling us about how important global citizenship is to you and to your future. You let us know how important it is for you to not only find your place in the world, but also to advance your purpose. I'm so excited to see what you will add to our community. I also want to congratulate the people who played a pivotal role on your journey. Parents and guardians, grandparents, older siblings, mentors, congratulations to you as well. Now, I'm sure that over the next few weeks, you will be exploring all that Drexel University has to offer. And I encourage you to sign up for all of the admitted student events in the month of April. Today, though, we want to focus on one of the key pillars of our undergraduate academic experience, why we believe a Drexel education has no equal. One of the main reasons our students choose to attend Drexel, and that is experiential education and co-op. Since our university's founding in 1891, Drexel has owned the concept of experiential education. You see it in everything that we offer our students, in our classrooms, through our community-based learning courses, where you're not just studying issues that are affecting the world, you are studying alongside the people actually affected. You see it through our research, through our study abroad experiences, and even our student clubs, organizations, and athletic programs. Everything here incorporates experience. But what we are most known for and what we are most proud of is our renowned cooperative education program, Co-op. Now, for over 100 years, our Co-op program has positioned us to be the national leader in experiential education. The integration of theory and practice in every facet of our academics at Drexel is bar none. From the moment you step onto our campus, we'll be preparing to enhance your academic and intellectual exploration with unmatched professional experiences. And serving as the cornerstone of experiential learning here is cooperative education. And this will provide you the opportunity to gain up to a year and a half of full-time work experience, working at one of over 1,600 organizations, ranging from Fortune 500 companies to nonprofits, to innovative startups and government agencies and other industry leaders. Not only will you build an impressive resume that will set you apart from your peers, but you'll also develop real-world knowledge and the soft power skills needed to excel, not only in the workplace, but if you decide on graduate school. And also, you'll earn money while doing so. The majority of our cooperative education experiences are paid. And for those that are paid, the median 6-month salary is more than $18,000. Your co-op experience will allow you to make real contributions to the organizations you work for while you're connecting with mentors, while you're developing relationships and building a professional network. And all of this will help you decide not only what you want to do, which is important, of course, but also what you do not want to do with your career. And all of this happens before graduation. All of this, we believe, is knowledge that is truly invaluable as you're entering your undergraduate career. Now, enough from me. I could go on and on about what co-op has to offer and the benefits to our students, but allow me to introduce you to my friend and to my colleague. Ian Sladen is Drexel's Vice President for Cooperative Education and Career Development, and his team will not only prepare you to step out into the world, they also secure the thousands of career and research opportunities available to our students way beyond graduation. I'll kick it off to you, Ian.
Thank you, Evelyn. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to congratulate and welcome all of our accepted students and their families to Virtual Co-op Day. It is my pleasure to speak with you tonight about Drexel Co-op, the support you will receive from the Steinbreit Career Development Center, and why our approach to education differentiates Drexel from nearly every university across the nation. For over 100 years, Drexel Co-op has helped thousands of students launch their careers by providing up to 18 months of practical work experience prior to graduation. What began in 1919 with 152 engineering students and a handful of employers has grown to a network of over 1,600 companies, providing 6-month work experiences to nearly 6,000 co-op students annually. In an era when institutions of higher education are only now changing their focus to career outcomes, I am proud to say that career development and employment outcomes have been part of Drexel's DNA from the beginning. We understand that students and parents are seeking a return on their investment, including intellectual and professional maturity, work readiness, and yes, employability upon graduation. Drexel will provide that path for you. My team and I are contacted on a regular basis by our colleagues at other institutions interested in learning how to launch a co-op program and provide a Drexel-like experience. It requires a commitment by the entire university community, faculty and staff alike, to integrate our world-class academic offerings with professional work experience. It also requires a comprehensive career development center of nearly 50 staff that provide a broad range of support from career education, co-op advising, and career counseling, graduate school advising, connectivity to industry, and an assessment process to monitor your professional growth, the quality of your industry experiences, and our efforts in preparing you for future employment. We are very intentional in the work that we do, and assessment is a key part of this process. At the conclusion of each 6-month co-op cycle, our team surveys both students and their employers on work performance and career readiness. The questions included in our survey are mapped to 8 essential competency areas established by NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers. These competencies include professionalism and work ethic, critical thinking and problem solving, oral and written communications, teamwork, leadership, and career management, just to name a few. Faculty also contribute discipline-specific questions as part of our assessment process to ensure students gain the technical competencies required for their major and industry. Survey instrument also allows for both quantitative and qualitative responses, providing our faculty with a thorough assessment of student performance, including areas of strength and career competencies that require improvement. Performance metrics are compiled and shared with faculty annually to inform curricular and co-curricular enhancements, improving the candidacy of future co-op students. Beyond the data, cooperative education advisors facilitate post-co-op debriefing meetings with students and faculty from their respective academic departments. These group meetings allow students to reflect upon their experiences, articulate their self-perceived strengths and weaknesses, while learning from the experiences of their peers. Faculty hear firsthand student accounts of the co-op employment experience, which provide them with a better understanding of their students, real-time industry trends, and informs how they integrate this new knowledge into classroom learning and discussion. Now, over the past year, the COVID pandemic has impacted the lives of every one of us. Many families have had to face the challenges of remote or hybrid learning, telework, and often all under the same roof. We have faced adversity as well, and I am so proud of the support the Steinbright team has provided our students and employers alike as we adjusted to the pandemic. Just over a year ago, the Steinbright team pivoted to a virtual office within 24 hours notice, while still providing high-quality advising, teaching, programming, and engagement that our student and employers have grown accustomed to. In order to maintain continuity for both students and employers alike, we quickly expanded co-op employment options that for the first time included telework, flexible start and end dates, and part-time co-op options. We leveraged our network of alumni, current employers, and Drexel faculty and staff to create hundreds of new opportunities for students that had their co-op assignments impacted by the uncertainty of the pandemic. We provided guidance to students on how to best acclimate to a new employment environment, especially for those who had obtained virtual co-ops. We taught students how to engage with their supervisors, network with their coworkers, and adjust to the realities of working from home. We also worked with colleagues from across the globe that specialize in co-op and work in integrated learning, as well as our own co-op employers, in developing best practices in engaging and supporting their co-op students during such a unique time in their lives. These best practices were shared with other co-op employers through workshops and seminars to help provide the very best experience to Drexel co-op students. It was challenging, but we persevered as a united community of administrators, scholars, students, and co-op employers. In conclusion, I wish you all the very best in making your college decision, and I look forward to seeing you on campus this fall. It is now my great pleasure to introduce one of my favorite colleagues, Dr. Karen Knowlton, Director of Writing Assessment and Teaching Professor of English. Karen?
Thank you so much, Ian. And thank you all for being here, for many of you at the end of a long day Zooming, and I appreciate your dedication to do that. It's hard to Zoom more. So let me tell you a little bit about how I'll be addressing our talk tonight. I'm going to talk to you sort of with three different hats on. One is as a teaching professor of English and the director of writing assessment here at Drexel, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. The second is the parent of actually two Drexel graduates, but only one who went all the way through the co-op program, and that's Chris, who graduated in 2015 with a chemistry degree. And the third is as a cooperative education researcher. And as we start to think about all of these ways to address the cooperative education, I want to just start by talking to you about how we view cooperative education. And what it is cooperative education is an educational theory that presupposes that what you learn in the classroom and what you learn experientially for us that's out in the world on the job have to go together to form a complete picture and understanding of any field of understanding. And it's really important that we see it that way rather than as a bits and pieces. As Ian said a moment ago, other universities are starting to say, I think we might need an internship program. And in those programs, they have a 4-year plan of study with this sort of add-on that is a suggested or even mandatory in some schools now, internship. What Drexel offers is a theory of education where the experiential learning is intertwined with the academic learning. And that's an entirely different and far superior product, I'm going to suggest. And here's why. At Drexel, if you are, as many of you will be, 5-year, 3 co-op students, you are going to spend 33% of your time learning about your major while you're in the workplace learning about it. If you're a 1 co-op student, you're going to spend 14% of your program time learning on in the workplace. And for me, I'll say, as an English professor, that means I need to understand how my students and what my students are learning on co-op so that I can bring that into play with what we're learning in the classroom and offer a complete picture. And that's happening in biomedical engineering, that's happening in game design, that's happening in architecture, that's happening in chemistry. So in all of the ways that we think about education at Drexel, we're also thinking about how we educate, how we integrate the learning that you do on the job, and how we respect the learning that happens on the job, because a lot of learning happens in that world. As we do that, Ian mentioned before that we've been doing this for a while. Right before the pandemic, we celebrated our 100th year of co-op. We started doing co-op in 1919 at Drexel, and we're still doing it. We are, as Ian mentioned, one of the top size and leaders in co-op in North America, but we are more than that. We are players in the international field where co-op and cooperative education is also quite large. The World Association for Cooperative Education, WACE, is the largest international body that works with cooperative education theory, practice, and research. And Ian Sladen, who's our vice president for cooperative education and career development, just rotated off being on the WACE executive committee. Lynn Hinkle, who you are going to meet in a little bit, who's our executive director for co-op, is on the as an executive board member for CIA, Cooperative Education and Internship Association, which is the largest national co-op and internship research association. What that means is we don't only know what's happened before, because we've been doing it for 100 years, and we don't only know what's happening now because we're doing it right now. We are on the cutting edge of deciding what cooperative education is going to look like 10 and 20 years from now. And we're understanding what's happening globally. Ian and I actually just 2 years ago were presenting in Germany, listening to hear what was happening around the world in cooperative education, so that we know not just what we need to know, but what we will need to know. And again, when we're talking about cooperative education that is based upon jobs that are largely international and becoming more and more international, that's the kind of expertise that matters. So that's the large overview. Let me give you a smaller view of what it will look like for you when you come in here and if you enter the co-op program, which many of you will. So I'm going to walk us through the 5-year curriculum with 3 co-ops, because again, that is what the majority of you will do. And I can be a little visually challenged. So if you're like me, I'm just going to walk you through this image because I found it the first time I saw it a little bit daunting. So if we look at this, the very small code at the bottom will tell you that the dark blue squares that you see here represent academics in the classroom. This one lone little blue star here that says summer is the only time that you will have summer vacation. And we're going to talk about why and why that's a good thing. And these light green ones are times that you would be on co-op. Now, our co-op has 2 cycles. You would either be doing your 6 months in the fall and the winter, or you would be doing your 6 months in the spring and the summer. And this chart is set up as if you were a fall-winter co-op. So let's just go through it, assuming that. And what you'll see is that, as you know, we are a quarter school. So we have 4 quarters for fall, winter, spring, and summer. In your first year, you'll be in class fall, winter, and spring, and you'll have the summer off, and that will be your farewell to summers off. During that time, you will also be preparing for and applying to your first co-op that when you come back from your summer off, you will engage in, and you'll spend 6 months working. Then you'll come back and spend 6 months working in the classroom learning, do this and preparing for, applying for and obtaining your second co-op. You'll come back and do another 6 months of co-op, 6 months in the classroom, and another time applying for and preparing for your third co-op, 6 months out on co-op, and then 5 quarters back in the classroom where we cement that knowledge and really work to integrate fully everything that's been happening in the academic world so far and everything that's happened in the work world so far. So what this means, and this is important to pay attention to, is that your first year, these 3 blue squares of that first year, fall, winter, and spring, is what you bring to your GPA, to your academic, to your extracurricular activities, is what you bring to apply for your first year job. To your first co-op. And let me just tell you a little bit more about that. So Dr. Chris Schultz, who's up here defending his PhD dissertation, and here I have on my mother hat because this is my son who graduated from Drexel. He graduated from Drexel and did a PhD in genetics, genomics, and the biology of cancer from Jefferson. At the end of his time at Jefferson, he had started an LLC with 2 colleagues. He had 3 peer-reviewed publications in top cancer journals, and he was invited to interview for postdocs at the National Institute of Health, the NIH, where you don't just cold call, you have to be invited to interview. He interviewed at 7 labs and was offered jobs in 5 of those labs. Now let's go back to this slide for a minute. And that's all because of how well he did in fall, winter, and spring of his freshman year. Now, if we were doing 2 truths and a lie, everything that I just told you about my son would be true, except for that last thing about how well he did his freshman year, because I don't know what Chris was doing his freshman year, but it definitely wasn't chemistry. And at the end of that year, he had a GPA, which either I've blacked out or he hasn't shared with me. Either way, it's good because I can't think about what it was, but it wasn't good enough to get him a co-op offer. We have 3 cycles. So when you apply to co-op, there are 3 cycles. We call them A round, B round, and C round. And essentially you apply for A round and you might match then with your perfect employer. If not, in B round, you will likely match with your perfect employer. If not, we have C round for students and employers who are still looking to be matched. Well, my son managed to get through all of those and not get matched. That's a very small proportion of students that happens to, and we do have backup plans for that. It's not like you just go away. Chris's backup plan was he worked as an unpaid co-op 20 hours a week in a lab where he had been doing work study. And he learned a lot in those 6 months. Yeah, he learned a lot of lab skills, but most importantly, he learned what it feels like to have all of his friends talk about the co-ops that they got and not have one. And he learned what it feels like to realize that he had had too much fun and that he was paying the price now, and he never wanted to feel that way again. And what Chris did when he came back to the classroom after that co-op is start bumping that GPA incrementally up, because after you tank it your first year, it takes a little while to move it far enough up. And because he was so determined not have a co-op again, even before Steinbright opened the co-op cycle, he did what you are also welcome to do. He went outside of the Steinbright career services path and found his own internship and got it approved, and did a co-op with Church and Dwight, which actually it's the company behind a lot of companies like Procter and Gamble, and Arm & Hammer does the chemicals. So he got himself a internship there for 6 months, a co-op. He did that, came back to class, boosted his GPA, was invited back for his 3rd co-op at Church and Dwight, and ended up the combination of working his way back to the top and getting recommendations from his work and his professors, doing this, getting a doctorate and then a postdoc. And he is so grateful as a human being, and I am so grateful as his parent, that he got to fail early, right? How terrible if he had waited 4 years and then learned that lesson about what it feels like for everyone else to be employed but him. He failed early, and he had time to get his feet back under him and learn how to do it better in a supportive environment that helped him to do better. And that's exactly what happened. And for me as a parent, I will tell you that is one of the really important parts of co-op, is that you will hear from students who hit the ground running and they have done phenomenally, but you're also hearing from the parent of someone who didn't hit the ground running and he has done phenomenally. And that's where we want that growth to occur, when they're in a supportive place and can recover. So here's how we make that happen. And this is obviously a thought through and complete process. When you come into Drexel, the first thing that you're going to learn in terms of co-op is which cycle you're in, whether it's fall, winter, or spring, summer. And that cycle will depend on what your major is, and it will depend on a lot of factors, but you will learn about that. And before you apply for co-op, you will take a mandatory course called Co-op 101, where you'll learn how to write a resume, how to apply for jobs, how to work the Drexel system where you see the jobs. Excuse me. You learn how to interview, and then and then you apply and hopefully get your co-op. Then you have a pre-co-op meeting with an advisor in co-op in Steinbright to help you get ready for this experience, to make sure that you're ready for smooth transition. You have your co-op experience with check-ins during the way. And at the end, when you come back, and this Ian mentioned before, and this is such an important part of it, is because we are a tier 1 research institution, we are all about assessment. You'll fill in a large survey where you talk about your experiences, and you'll write a 400-word reflective analysis where you reflect on how well you've met a personal, professional, or academic goal while you're on co-op. And then you'll use that in your debrief, where you talk with other students and with a Steinbright advisor about what worked and what went well, and where were the growth points and where were the pain points, and how do you use that moving forward before you move into your second round of co-op. So it's a carefully nuanced and carefully constructed introduction that takes you all the way through the work cycle, but in my mind, even more importantly, out the other end, so that you begin again with more success. And I've mentioned a few times that Drexel is a tier 1 research institution. I'm going to talk now as a faculty member about why that matters to me. So I work with writing assessment. Those of you out there who are planning on taking the AP exam, either the Langen-Comp or the Lytten-Comp, before I came to Drexel, I was a senior assessment specialist at Educational Testing Service, and I was in charge of creating the content and overseeing the scoring of those exams. So I care about writing assessment. And when I thought about co-op, I thought, let me find out what place writing has for students and for employers, because I have a feeling it's more important than many students think it is. And as I started doing this co-op, this coding, and looking to see what students and employers said, I said, oh, wow, this story is so much bigger than writing. Let me code this whole story and tell it. And just briefly, the end result of that research was we discovered that the relational skills, communication, professionalism, interpersonal skills, working together as a team, and intrapersonal, knowing yourself, were far more important to students in terms of the skills that they used and counted upon, and to employers, than the discipline-specific skills were, which sort of surprised many of us. From this, Drexel funded me to go to WACE a number of times and work on that research and understand what others in the world are doing around these concepts. And we created a 1-credit course. We said, wow, relational skills are so important, and they're what students say they really want to grow more into before their next co-op. Why don't we help them with that while they're on co-op? So we created a 1-credit online course that I teach, where students are taught to explore these skills. So one thing I do the very first week is ask them to pay attention to the discourse community that they're in. How do people communicate? And how do you fit how you communicate to that community you're in? I have them do mini interviews, I call them, about a few topics. The first is about time management, because that's something students have talked about. And the students go and talk to their bosses and 2 colleagues, which both gets them to think about it and to understand the importance of this skill, but also gets them known and seen as proactive by the people that they're working with. And this all came out of the research that we did. I was lucky enough to get accepted as a Fulbright specialist, and I did a 2019 Fulbright to South Africa working with their cooperative education office, and they have a phenomenal system there. And their system is phenomenal partly because it came out of post-apartheid as a tool for social justice. And part of the theory was that if we have a robust co-op system so that underrepresented groups both get experience in the workplace and are seen as capable workers, we will create a more just society when all of our students graduate from college. And it was fascinating work. And I brought some tools that they needed. That's why I was able to go there as a specialist, but I also brought back the insights that they had to us as Drexel. So the fact that we're a tier 1 research institution and that we care about co-op affects us as faculty members in many ways. I now want to introduce you to my student, Liz Rosa. I applied for a funded co-op position through Steinbright because I was really curious about doing more with what I was learning about co-op as an educational theory and how it's best practice. Liz is a Drexel soon-to-be alum, class of 2022. She is doing a combined BS-MS, and she worked with me for 6 months researching cooperative education. And Liz is going to jump on and tell us just briefly about that project and what she got out of it. Welcome, Liz.
So, through my research, I looked at cooperative education as a form of work integrated learning. What's unique about programs like these is that it facilitates students' learning through integrating experiences across academic and workplace contexts. And this enables students to engage in diverse learning opportunities that aren't necessarily possible in formal classrooms. I found that there are many benefits to participating in co-op. There's an opportunity to hone your discipline-specific skills that you learn through your major by taking theory and transferring it into real-life skills through practice. It also helps to increase soft skills that are useful in the workplace and that graduates are expected to have once they enter the workplace. These skills are professionalism, communication, teamwork, leadership, problem solving, self-management, and an awareness and understanding of workplace culture and expectations. During my time as a research assistant, I also helped to conduct a comprehensive review of the surveys completed by students and employers at the end of a student's co-op. We found that after the first co-op, interpersonal skills, disciplinary specific skills, and the ability to transfer skills from academics to the workplace are cited more as strengths, suggesting that co-op improves these skills. We also found that communication and interpersonal skills are cited less as weaknesses as students participate in more co-op experiences, suggesting that these skills improve through cooperative education as well. This really showed me that cooperative education is a very unique experience that can really help in many different ways in your time at Drexel and after you graduate.
Thank you so much, Liz. And Liz has so many charts and slides she could show you about all of this. We just don't have time for it. But what our research does show is that as you move through the co-op system, you improve in these key areas. And our students who only do one co-op also show improvement, but our students who do 3 co-ops show even more improvement. Thank you so much. So now I'm going to put on my last and hopefully not too ugly hat, and that's as a teacher. So I teach lots of courses. My PhD is in American literature. As you know, I spent a long time as an assessment specialist working with writing assessment, and I teach in the first year sequence, which I love, English 101, 102, and 103. And this is just an example of how we pull co-op into what we do in the classroom. And the reason that we do this, Liz mentioned the word transfer when she was talking about transfer skills. Transfer is the big buzzword in education. It's what we all think happens, that we learn something in one place and we use it somewhere else, right? It's what we all want to be doing. And the research into that, though, shows us that it's not as easy as we think. That in fact, unless we create paths between the learning that we have and the new learning, we are less able to access that knowledge. What that means is that I consciously, and the rest of the first year writing program, consciously creates links to co-op in our writing courses so that students, those of you who are coming next year, will be able to access it more readily when you're on co-op. So I start by showing the graphs that we didn't have time to show tonight, and that's about the research and the research about the importance of writing and communication to success on co-op. And we talk about how writing has to be bigger than one course. It links to success in co-op, it links to success in writing in the disciplines, and it links to success in using writing as a tool to understand yourself and your own experiences, like we ask them to do, students to do, when they write the reflective analysis at the end of the cooperative co-op term. So I'll just give you 2 examples of what I do in the classroom that helps with that. So when I teach English 101, actually I was teaching it last term, and I have students post a lot on discussion boards, and they're writing to each other, and often they're really engaged and they have great ideas. And I was reading through it and I said, wow, these students have phenomenal ideas, and it's all one paragraph. And I think their wonderful ideas are getting lost because it's so much work to keep them all in mind at once, right? That's what paragraphs do. They help us not to hold more than one idea at once. So all I did was take a letter of recommendation for a job that I had written for someone, and I got out all the identifying information. And I I gave it to them in two ways. I said, here's one letter of recommendation for a job with the paragraphs like I had it, nice succinct paragraphs like you would write. And the next one I gave them was the same thing, but with no paragraph breaks. And I said, which one is more compelling? Which person would you be more likely to see as a viable candidate for the job? And 99% of them said, well, the one with the paragraphs. And I said, why? And they talked about it. They said, well, because I don't have to do the job as a writer, as a reader, because I don't have to work so hard, because it seems like that person cared enough about the student to make it easy for me as a reader. All of the reasons that we use paragraphs, which of course we then brought back into why you might want to paragraph your ideas for your peers, because they too like it when you make it easy. But in allowing students to see a real life application of this, we don't need to sit there and say, here's the rule for paragraphs, most of which are kind of silly anyway. We need to say, why do you use it? How do you use it? And how will you continue to use it, and to what effect? I'll just give you one other example. When I was teaching English 102, which is our research writing course, at the end of all of that writing and all of the research, and we sort of needed a break from the research, I said, okay, get into groups. And here is a job that is now live on Drexel. Drexel is looking for someone in this job. Figure out 5 things you need to research before you would apply for that job, interview for that job, or write a cover letter for that job. And they all figured out, wow, well, this is working in this group. I'd better find out who's in that group, and maybe look at their LinkedIn profiles and find out what they're researching and what they care about and what's going on in that group now and what are their endeavors. And maybe I should figure out, if this is what they're hiring a person for, what are other people doing in that area, right? So we make the link between learning how to do research in one area and learning how to do research in an experiential area. And that makes it easier to capture later on co-op and after that. And again, that's a benefit that you have when you go to a school that has an educational theory of cooperative education, rather than simply an internship that's tacked on somewhere later on in your career. So what do you get from this? What do you get from this well-rounded person that we hope to create? Well, here's what you get. You get over 1,500 employers to work with and choose from. You get over 5,500 students being employed at a 98% employment rate. You get to be in a school where there is 94% co-op participations, which means we do this, we do it every day, we do it all day, and we care about it. What else do you get? Well, you get to be in a place where we can say, of the students who had a co-op experience, nearly half of them were offered a job from their co-op employer. That's pretty incredible. And it speaks a lot to what happens when you get to show your stuff before you graduate, because those employers aren't hiring an unknown quantity, they're hiring a known good worker. And that absolutely 100% gives you an in, which these data show. What else do you get from this experience, from this cooperative education? Well, you get the fact that 94% of ours graduates are employed, or in graduate school or postgraduate school, like my son, Chris. Again, something that all of us cares about. So I think that goes back to what is cooperative education. Again, it is truly learning amplified in a way that if we do it right and you do it right, even if you start wrong, like my son Chris did, by the end, we have a well-rounded human being who has 18 months, 6 to 18 months of full-time work experience behind her, has the recommendations and the notice of 1 to 3 employers behind her, and who has had a chance to understand what works and what doesn't, and 3 times to refine that before she goes out and applies for a job and takes that first step through that office. Any failures like my son Chris experienced happened long before you apply and get your first job. So thank you so much for sharing that journey with me. I appreciate your time. And I'm going to now introduce you to Lynn Hickel, who is our board member and works here with Steinbrück. Excuse me while I stop sharing.
Karen, thank you so much for everything you do. You're such an incredible supporter of the co-op program. as a researcher, as an employer yourself, and as a mom supporting a kid who was struggling. We really appreciate it all the way around. Hey, everybody, my name is Lynn Hickel. As Karen said, I am the Executive Director of Cooperative Education. Honored and grateful to be that. Little background for me, I've been at Drexel for 20 years. I've been in my current role for about 5. My other roles at Drexel have although been managing student support units. So I got into higher ed because I love being a college student myself. Frankly, I never wanted to leave. I figured out a way not to ever leave. But I love college students. I love watching your journey. I love supporting your growth. And I also like helping you through the tough times, which is often when the growth comes. So also of note, my dad came to Drexel University in 1960 because it offered this thing called the co-op program. And without it, he wouldn't be able to go to college because he was a first generation college student. So he is a proud Drexel dragon. So before I kick off the introductions or have the panelists introduce themselves, just a few housekeeping things. Keep yourself on mute while we're doing the panel, but please ask questions in the chat of the panelists. I have a few admissions colleagues who are going to manage the chat, but I might call out some of your questions for the group to answer. And then also up in the right-hand corner of your screen, there's a little view box. If you want, you can switch it to speaker instead of gallery, and then that way you can see just the person who's talking. It's really a matter of preference for you. You can see all of these little boxes, or you can just see the one from people of the person speaking. So whatever it is you want to do. So with that, I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Devni. If you can introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Devni. As of Friday, I'm actually a Drexel alum. I was a health science major with a minor in exercise science. I also come from a Drexel family. We all went to Drexel, so I just continued on the legacy. And I also studied abroad in London. And I was a 4-year 1 co-op, and I actually did my co-op last year in the beginning of the pandemic in person at a physical therapy clinic, medical rehabilitation centers of Pennsylvania, and I worked as a physical therapy aide.
Thanks so much. Okay, Matt, can you go next, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a pre-junior, and that's just a term we use at Drexel to say you're in your 3rd or 5th years. So I'm a pre-junior. I just did my first co-op with en route marketing, and my boss Bill is here today. He's going to introduce himself afterwards, I think. And I am a history and communications double major. I'm currently in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where I grew up. And on Monday, I will be starting my next co-op with Comcast.
Thanks so much, Matt. Yeah, Bill, if you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself next, that'd be great.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Bill Gehrman. I am the owner of En route. We're a marketing agency in Center City, Philadelphia that works with tourism, civic, and cultural projects. And I started my company 14 years ago. We have used the Drexel Co-op program, I think at least 9 of them. I can say that we had Drexel co-ops before I had employees. So we've had about 25 co-ops in our small company over the term. Matt was with us the last term, which was the first one to be fully virtual. And tomorrow, Friday ends our current co-op term. We have 3 co-ops, and on Monday we bring in a new group of 4 co-ops.
Thank you so much for your commitment to the program, Bill. I mean, as Bill just outlined, not only do students from one cycle end on the Friday before the Monday of the next cycle where more students start. So, it is just a rhythm at Drexel that we're used to and our employers are used to. So thanks so much, Bill, for that. David, can you unmute yourself and go next with your introduction?
Hello, I'm David. I'm a 4th year student here at Drexel. I'm dual majoring in architecture and architectural engineering. I'm currently wrapping up my co-op at Cole, working under Paul Constantini. I end that on Friday, actually, so I'm almost done. But I have had that co-op for the past 6 months, and I had a co-op prior about a year ago at another engineering and architecture firm, Robert E. Lamb, where I was also in their structural engineering department. So all my co-ops have been structural engineering, and they have been immensely valuable.
Thanks so much, David. Paul, can you unmute yourself and go next, please?
Sure. My name is Paul Constantini. I'm with Cole. I'm the Director of Structural Engineering. Ewing Cole's an architectural engineering firm headquartered in Center City. We have 9 offices throughout the country. We've been using Drexel co-ops for many, many, many years. David is just going to finish up his co-op, as he mentioned, in the structural department this Friday. We have 2 new Drexel co-ops following in his footsteps on Monday. And it's not just the structural group that does that, as well as the architects and all the other engineering disciplines within Ewing Cole. I've been doing this for about 30 years now, and I'm a 1995 graduate of Drexel, my master's degree in civil engineering.
Go Dragons. So Paul's a great example of our alumni. They went through the co-op program themselves. They know how hard it was, but also how valuable it was. And then when they're in a position to hire co-op students, that's what they do. So thank you so much, Paul. Ming, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, my name is Mingwan Jiang. I'm a 4th-year chemical engineering student at Drexel. I'm from China and also a first-gen student. I'm in a 5-year, 3 co-op program. I have finished up all my 3 co-ops. For my first co-op, I was a water quality analyst at Philadelphia Water Department. I did my second co-op at Merck as a associate specialist in operation for Pneumovax 23 and OMPC at West Point, PA. And I just finished up my 3rd co-op at Merck again as an associate specialist in global vaccine technical operation for pneumoconjugate vaccine known as V114, which is under review by FDA currently, and finger crossed to get approved in near future.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ming. And then Malaika, did you join us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. I'm sorry. We have a lot of registrants tonight. I didn't see you. So
Yeah,
go ahead and
that's
introduce
fine.
yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Malaika. I'm currently a senior at Drexel. I'm going to be starting my last term next week. And I've done 2 co-ops so far. I did my first co-op at PECO, which is the Philadelphia Electric Company, where I worked as a business analyst. And I did my second co-op right when the pandemic started. I did it completely remote. And I worked at a startup, which is based out of Philly, and it's called Inspire Energy. And they're a renewable energy company.
Okay, thank you all for your introduction. So my role here, I was told to moderate a panel, but moderate lightly. So we're really hoping that this will be conversational and getting to know these students and now being introduced to these employers. I don't think we're going to have any trouble with that. But if the students could maybe start with talking about what was the best thing about your co-op experience and also what was the most challenging. So whichever student would like to go first.
Yeah, for me, I think the most challenging thing was working as coming in thinking I was an intern. And it's different than the typical internship program. And all my friends who go to other schools, they're on a typical, they might be there for a month or 2 months. But as a co-op, you're there for 6 months. So you really get into it and you really work as a member of the team. So your opinion is valued and you get to work on actual projects and long-term projects as well. And for me, the best part was just learning more new skills. I'm a history major and I worked and I did a lot of coding and website programming, things like that. So being able to learn new skills, both technical, then also soft skills, as Karen mentioned, that transfer to any job and in any co-op.
Thanks, Matt.
I can go next. Specifically for my co-ops, I think the best thing working at Merck was it's a huge company with tremendous opportunities. The company culture is great. People are very motivated to do their work. And, we enjoy do what we do because we're making life-saving vaccines. I think co-op experience really helped me determine what I want to do in the future. You make great connections. The networking is very important, and you have that great opportunity to make those networking and connections during co-op experience. I think the most challenging part at my job specifically was the steep learning curve. Pharmaceutical industry is highly regulated, so we have to be careful of what we do and how we do stuff. Learning those vaccine manufacturing process was not easy, but Drexel really prepared me well in learning new skill quickly compared to other students from different university, and knowing how to communicate with different audience is another skill I've developed during co-op experiences.
Thanks, Ming.
I think reflecting on the co-op I'm actually concluding right now, the best thing that I would say is just their commitment to really integrate, or at least you and Cole's commitment to really integrating you into the teams and giving you a full experience. I know on multiple occasions I heard comments, whether or not I was supposed to, where it'd be like that would be really valuable for David, or he'll really get a lot from that. And I did hear those comments to myself or to me as well, where it was like, oh, that would be really good if you do that. But there's a huge emphasis on spending the time to learn what I'm doing. Like, we have a lot of codes and standards in architectural engineering and architecture as a whole, and really they require that you keep up on them. And I haven't had any exposure to them in my classes beyond some simple exposure, because obviously professors aren't allowed to give you code books. They have to give snippets and give like a general understanding of it. But to really have them say, hey, sit down, like spend some time looking at this and like make sure you understand it. It's definitely, as Matt said, a different approach than internships would give, because they know you're there for 6 months. So they really emphasize, or at least you and Cole again, really emphasized like spending the time to make sure I understood what I was doing. And I think that was insanely valuable. I think the ability to take what I learned in a 10-week course and then apply it to a building, which might take years to build and see it. And I got to see buildings from their early design process to middle design to literally 100% construction document submittals, and then shop drawings after. So like once stuff is getting constructed. So the range of time that I got to see it and the depth that I got to see each project, I would say it is immeasurably valuable. I'm really happy with this past co-op.
Wonderful. Devni or Malaika, would you like to add?
Yeah, so for me, the best part was that, you know, being in the health science major, you need those patient contact hours. So I really got to do that hands-on, work with patients. While being in classes, I could only really shadow, I couldn't really do much, but during on co-op, I got to know the patients, got to work with them and build on those skills that, you know, going into grad school are really important. So that was really great. And I guess something that was challenging, which is out of Drexel's control and out of my company's control, is that I was working during the pandemic. So you just saw a lot of that shift in that week. I think when the world shut down is when I started on co-op. So you just saw a huge shift of everything. But it also just showed me that, you know, working in the healthcare field, you work no matter what. So it really did prepare me going forward in that reality.
Yeah, just to echo what everybody else said, I think the one thing I value the most about both my co-ops is I had the opportunity to own the role. I was never treated like an intern. I always had multiple leadership opportunities. And I feel like that's something you don't get in the classroom, to learn to adapt to a professional work environment, whether it was in the pandemic or not. I think that's extremely valuable, because that's something you don't get when you're in the classroom. And for the challenging part, I think it was the learning curve with both of my positions, because I worked 2 analyst positions, and there were a lot of different business analyst softwares that I had to learn that I was never exposed to before. So it was just the learning curve that came with it. But fortunately, I have very, very resourceful mentors that helped me every step of the way. So it never really felt like too much of a burden.
Wonderful. Paul and Bill, I'd love to hear your perspective on what you see are sometimes the biggest challenges for students, or the gaps that they need to make smaller once they come on to co-op, and what advice you might have for students.
No, I can go, Bill. I mean, I think the biggest thing I would ask of a co-op student would be to come with an open mind and an eagerness and willingness to just dive in and not be afraid to ask questions. You know, with David's role as an example, recently in the last 6 months, I mean, he came in, you know, there's a feeling out period of where we're trying to gauge on what his abilities are and what he can do for us, and how much he knows about the position and how much he's really able to absorb things. And David, I have to say, really hit the ground running. And it's so true of a lot of Drexel graduates, depending upon their year that they come in to help us out. But, David was willing and eager to jump in and got involved with a lot of really incredible projects. Right now, we are considered essential workers in Pennsylvania. So we have a lot of science and technology projects that are very important. And, he's been involved on the front lines of getting involved with every project that we've had in the group to help, get it through production, whether, it's doing the most basic tasks, even a little bit more seasoned tasks. And he's been able to do that. So I think that the responsibility, we dole it out as much as they're able to take in. And I think it's just that open-mindedness and the, asking questions and not being afraid to, and just being willing to jump in. It's a great quality.
Fantastic.
Yeah, one thing I just want to say is I know we're talking a lot about co-op specifically here, well, that's pretty much everything we're talking about, but I just want to give props to the Drexel students and the Drexel. When we bring in students, I don't care where they're from, if it's an internship, if it's a co-op, or if I hire somebody right out of college, I have very limited expectations, because until you get out in the workforce and we can see what you can do, I know there may be limits. And I have to say that let's say we've had 25 co-ops, I'd say at least 21, 22 of them have overachieved, surpassed any expectation I had. I mean, Matt is a great example where they really do become employees. I mean, they show up, they do their work, they're not asking you for something every day. So we have just been so thrilled with the quality of student that we get. I think what students are looking for is, I always think they're looking for something specific, some type of professional training. But what our co-ops tell us is they just want to learn what it's like to go to work. They like getting up and being in at 9 a.m. and taking the elevator up, and being in client meetings. They love being in client meetings, which is really important. So we really engage them in every aspect. If it's a great day, excellent, they're part of that. If it's a challenging day, they're part of that. I think, one of the things I always tell our co-ops is I make them use the phone, because a lot of the students these days, when you tell them to make some calls, they're really not sure. They'd much rather text or do something else. But when I say, here's a list of 20 media that you need to call and pitch a story to for a PR pitch, that's a real challenge. And I see the fear in their eyes, but we make them do it, and they learn from that. So I'm committed that when they leave our co-op, I want to make sure that when they go on to the next co-op, they say, wow, where did you get that training? I always tell them, I don't want them going to their next co-op or their first job and people saying, did you get any experience?
It's wonderful. Thanks, Bill. I appreciate all the anecdotes, and they resonate with me so much. Obviously, talking with students myself, often the most challenging parts are the parts you described as the things that they want the most. Showing up on time, dressing appropriately, figuring out how to speak in a meeting or not speak in a meeting. All of those sort of extraordinarily important career competencies that you really can't teach in a classroom. I mean, we can talk about the importance of professionalism, but what is it really? And quite frankly, it's different across all industries. So you really have to experience it in order to learn it. And of course, that's the model of education that we offer. And yeah, Drexel students are completely unique. So ambitious. Our tagline, ambition can't wait. They come here to work, they come here to learn, they come here to fail and figure it out and grow. And so they're really, really incredible. So let's hear from our students again. Those of you with multiple co-op experiences under your belt, can you touch on the development? Exactly what Bill just mentioned and I mentioned is the most exciting part for me to witness, your development between your first, your second, your third co-op. Who'd like to go first?
I can start with it. After I've done all three of my co-ops. After done all three of my co-ops, I saw a big change in myself in terms of confidence, technical skill, and networking skill. During my first co-op, I was so nervous and scared because of my accent and the lack of experiences. My mentor, Dr. Norton, can tell you all about that. But after first co-op, I had a great relationship with my boss. Getting the acknowledgement from your first job was a huge confidence booster. And his reference also played a huge role during my second co-op application process. During my second co-op, I learned the importance of networking, especially for a big corporate. So I tried very hard to get out of my comfort zone and start talking to people, making connections. My second co-op also helped me develop the technical skill in vaccine manufacturing and a soft skill in working cross-functionally between different teams and different departments. All these skills and networking helped me landing my third co-op at Merck again in Global Vaccine Technical Operation Group, where I had a great opportunities to work with different manufacturing sites globally, including US, Ireland, and Italy. My boss is a executive director who helped me network and setting up many informative one-on-one interview with my potential hiring manager for a full-time position in the future. I was also lucky enough to have mentors at Merck who helped me all along through my co-op experience in terms of how to communicate with different people, how to also help me expanding my network with the people she knew. After 3 co-ops, I determined what I want to do in the future. I've also made many connections and I'm still staying in touch with my boss, my coworkers and mentors. And I have also developed many hard skills in vaccine manufacturing. I've learned how to write a great resume for myself. I have to learn how to present myself in a professional setting. Most importantly, I have gained so much self-confidence. And honestly speaking, without all this past experience, I will not be here today share my experiences.
Fantastic. Who else would like to talk about their growth and development during their co-ops? And I will just want to mention and highlight that Ming shared that he did 2 of his co-ops at Merck, and that's okay. Students can go back to the same company, the same organization for all 3 of their co-ops. Now, my team would suggest that maybe they think about not doing that. Maybe they think about doing a co-op at 3 very different places, because really, when can you try out somewhere for 6 months? I mean, what's the worst case scenario? You try something and you're like, I really don't like this. Well, good, you're done then in 6 months, and then you don't ever have to try it again. But in Ming's case, because he had such a phenomenal second co-op at Merck, he wanted to build on that co-op at Merck, which makes complete sense. It achieves his professional goals. You heard about his growth and development. So we do encourage students, if they want to go back to the same place that they co-op previously, certainly do that, but talk to that employer about doing something different, learning something more, which is exactly what Ming did. So what student would like to talk about their growth and development next? Just jump in.
I can go next. So kind of just going off of what you said, I think when I did my first co-op at Pico, I worked in a really large department. And when I transitioned into my second co-op, it was a startup. So it was a really small company in itself. And my team only consisted of 5 people. And I realized that I thrive more in a smaller team than on a larger team. And I think for me, that was so crucial, especially now when I'm in my job search process, because I'm looking for companies that are mid-sized and not too large, because that's what I like. I think I thrive more in that environment. And just in general, I think with like learning professional mannerisms and stuff like that, I think it was very, very helpful moving from a larger company to a smaller company, because there was a lot that I could transfer from there on to my next co-op. So I think for me, it was just like understanding my niche and learning what I like more in a professional environment. And again, like I said, it's extremely valuable when you graduate and you're looking for that ideal job, because it helps you narrow down on your job search process.
Great, wonderful. Devni, I know you did one. David or Matt, do you want to share your experiences between your multiple co-ops?
I've only done one myself as well.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. David, how about you? I'm not sure what happened to David. Okay, well, here's what I'd like to hear from. I'd like to hear from the employers, Bill and Paul again, about what is the benefit for you to hire co-op students. I mean, Bill, you mentioned the unique nature of a co-op student and their ambition, but it's a lot of work. And, you know, I certainly recognize that our employers have to onboard. First of all, you have to interview a whole bunch of kids, right? Review their resumes, interview them, make offers. Sometimes you don't get the student you wanted, right? And then you have to go through it all again to try to get another student. Then you have to onboard them and train them. And Bill, you mentioned, you know, this was your first experience hiring a student remotely and having them work remotely. That's a whole different world. I mean, it's a lot of work. So why do you do this?
Oh, that's an easy answer. I mean, everything you said is 100% accurate, and it's totally worth it. So just to give everybody a view of what's it like for the employer. So we go through the same matchmaking that the students do. We get resumes of all the students. I think in this last round, we had 35 students that were interested in a round. We offered 22 interviews. So we did 22 interviews with students among our team. We waited. We're as anxious as you are. It's on my calendar. I wake up in the morning before I make coffee. I log in to see 0 matches out of all of us. And then we go to B round and we interviewed 20 something students. Now, luckily, this actually worked really well for us. And we got all 4 students in B round, which was rare for us. We have very frequently gone to C round. And what I've really learned and really want to emphasize is, if you don't get picked in A round or B round, there's no shame in that. We've had some of our best co-ops in C round by far. Matt, I think you were either C round or we picked you up as a free agent, I think, right?
Yeah, so I came after C round. So my first co-op, it was supposed to be with Comcast, and it got canceled because of COVID. And you know, Drexel gave me all the tools, and my advisor helped me a lot with finding this co-op with Bill. So I was able to help join with Bill after C round was even over.
So, and that's common. I would say in the last 5 years, at least 3 years, we have not filled all of our spots, and we have received emails from Drexel saying, are you willing to take another student? Will you interview? So we have added a number of students after C round and after the process. I also would say that for all the students out there, it's not a passive experience for the university. They don't just put it in the computer and then hope you match and hope you don't come to them, you know, upset. We have been contacted numerous times by the office. We have a personal relationship with our contacts, and they will call us and say, you know, I know you're full, or this, do you know anybody who would do co-ops? We've actually helped connect our clients and partners to help get more people into the system. So they are very engaged. It is not passive at all, but it's totally worth it. We're learning. Again, I'm a small business owner. I started with co-ops when I had no employees, and now I have 7. Going through the co-op process and onboarding actually teaches me how to have a better company. And right now, as we said, we have 3 co-ops that are finishing up, and their exit interviews are very important to me.
Thanks so much, Bill. Paul, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very similar experience to Bill. Of course, I have people on my staff that go out and do all the interviewing, and we definitely do every cycle that comes around. We look forward to having the co-ops come, and we always, you know, at least in our structural group, we try to keep 2 at all times. So in David's case, it was unique because of COVID and working remote. We weren't able to really fulfill the 2 slots that we were going to typically provide at you know, for his time slot. But you know, we depend on them, and we program them in assuming that we're going to get 2 for each cycle, because we just need them for our workflow. And one of the ways that we use them is throughout all of our offices. So we have 9 offices, 4 with structural engineering. So we're going to be sharing you know, help. I mean, David's worked on projects out of our California office, out of our North Carolina office. So I mean, it's not just the Philadelphia office that is using, you know, the resources of Drexel. We, you know, don't necessarily have them go on location to our other offices, but certainly through, you know, the abilities that we have of networking and you know, meeting online, you know, that we're able to share them across offices. So they're definitely an integral part of our operation in the structural department, and we highly depend on that cycle every 6 months of getting, you know, new people to come in and help out and join the team.
Wonderful, thanks.
Yeah.
So I've been told that the chat is on fire. and people are trying to keep up with the questions and they're giving some answers, but I've been told to share that all of your great questions are being captured and answers and resources for everybody will be sent to your inboxes sometime this week. Okay, so if we don't get to everybody's questions, you will get an email with answers. I also understand. Go ahead.
Whenever I chime in, I've been looking at the chat, and a lot of the questions seem to be about, how you find your co-op in a certain field. And, in Co-op 101, in that class we have to take, you're going to learn the system. But essentially, when you go to search for your job, you get to pick by major, and then you can also filter by the area that your co-op's in. So if you want to stay in the Philadelphia area, you can click that and you'll be there. But you can also search by major. So for me, I go through the history, the communication majors, and you don't have to apply to jobs just in your major. So for me, I worked with Bill, so that was a marketing agency. So that was under the marketing category in the marketing major. So I kind of lurked in the marketing and other things I might have been interested in.
Great. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate you jumping in there. I also understand in the chat, a lot of questions are about the 4-year 1 versus the 5-year 3 plan that Karen showed you that great graphic in the beginning of the presentation of those two options. And can you switch between the two? And how do you switch between the two? And so I'll just share that maybe. The answer is a solid maybe. So there are some academic programs that offer both the 4-year 3, and there are some academic programs that offer just the 4-year 1. But for those academic programs that do offer the 5-year 3 and the 4-year 1, yes, you can make that switch. It's better to do it sooner rather than later. It's just easier to do it that way. But it is possible to switch between the two. And I'd be curious to know, I see Malika shaking her head. Did you switch between the two, or did any of our, great. Maybe you can talk about your experience.
Yeah, I came in as a 4-year 1 co-op, but then I made the decision to switch my sophomore year, like beginning of my sophomore year, did the 5-3. Yeah, and it was pretty, it was very, very easy to do it. They're very, very flexible. My co-op advisor, my academic advisor were very, they were very quick to respond. And yeah, the transition was super easy, and they're very flexible.
Okay, great. Anybody else want to offer their experience if they had one? Now, Debney, you were in the 4-year 1. Is that because your program didn't offer the 5-year 3, or you chose the 4-year 1 specifically and stayed with it for a particular reason?
So we were only offered the 4-year 1. And I'm assuming that it's because a lot of the people in my major, we go to grad school afterwards. And also we don't have the skills or the certifications to continue hands-on practice, working with patients and stuff. So that is why we are offered the 4-year 1, but we do get a lot of shadowing opportunities before going onto our co-op, which is really great and really benefits us. So, you have an idea of going into your co-op experience.
Okay, great. I also understand people are interested in where you do co-op. So Paul mentioned that while his office hires the co-op students, they work with, I think you said 9, Paul, 9 different
we have 9 offices. So like in the structural group, we're only having structural capabilities in 4 of those 9, but we do, aside from our structural group, hire outs, we do take in mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, architectural, all different disciplines within architectural and engineering type of design. So there are opportunities for, the co-ops when they come in to work with any of our offices the way that we share staff amongst offices to get the projects done. So they're very much a part of the team when they come in and just joining hand in hand with everybody else to get the projects done that are in-house. Yeah.
Okay, great. Bill, is there any travel involved with the co-ops you hire, or?
No, we have not. I don't think we've taken co-ops anywhere, but they travel with us in experience. So for example, we En route was in charge of, in 2018, we ran the Tall Ships Festival that was in Philadelphia, from literally like hiring the ships and contracting all the way through being there on site over Memorial Day weekend. And our co-ops are with us every step of the way. We've done work with the Philadelphia Orchestra, and we've had Chinese orchestras that came into town And we planned a lot of like community engagement events, and they've been involved in that. So we don't necessarily get out of Philadelphia, but they do see a lot. And then we do try to take them out of the office at least to meetings. I mean, that is a big thrill. And we will go, out to the burbs or to New Jersey or wherever we're going. We want to put them in front of people. I always tell our co-ops, you are not sitting in a cubicle all day. You are not getting coffee. You are not getting dry cleaning. You are a member of the team like everybody else.
Love to hear that.
Yeah, and I think David actually got a chance to go down to the Smithsonian Institute. We had a project down there. I believe David traveled down to Washington for that, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't that true, David?
We lost David. I'm not sure.
Oh, we lost him? Yeah, he did.
We're
did
trying to
participate
find
in
him.
that. Yeah.
He might have had technical difficulties, but we'll take your word for it, Paul. If you say he did it, he did it. But yeah, so co-op is available around the world. We have students who work internationally. We have students who work nationally. We now have students who work remotely, which is a new thing for the co-op program. As our Vice President Ian Sladen said in his opening remarks, a lot has changed in the last year in terms of co-op. So I tell this story because I feel like everybody can kind of like say, yeah, I know where I was too. So on Friday, March 13th of last year, we had no co-ops working remotely. Every co-op was in an office somewhere. And on Monday, March 16th, every single one of our co-ops were working remotely. So, it was a huge change over the weekend. Some offices were able to better support it than others. Some students were able to better manage it than others. But we worked with all of our employers and all of our students to try to ensure that our students could continue to remain employed and be successful. And that's something we're not gonna, Pandora's box has been opened. So remote co-op is a thing. It's a thing that's here, and it's a thing that's here to stay. So it has allowed for a lot of regional and location kind of barriers to fall down. So now we can engage companies, corporations that are much further than the Philadelphia region and be quite confident that students won't think about, oh, but I don't know if I want to move there. I don't know if I want to live there. If that employer is opening to hiring our student remotely, then we want to get them on board. Certainly if a student is willing and able to move, we would support them in doing that too. So there really is no location barrier for us, for the co-op program, in terms of where a student might want to work. However, I understand also in the chat, there's questions about housing. Some employers offer housing. The co-op office does not, unfortunately, have the resources to support helping students find housing where they go, but many students are successful. I mean, that's something that's new too in the last 10 years, Airbnbs, VRBOs. If students find job opportunities in big metropolitan areas, obviously there's usually colleges and universities there. Where do their students live? They have a student housing center. So we have resources that we can give to students to help them find housing, but often their employer also will help them find housing if it's not where they're either at Drexel in the Philadelphia area or where they're from. We also have a lot of students who go home. They're from Austin, Texas. They go home for co-op and they find a co-op in Austin, Texas, and they live at home and they save that money on housing. So that's another great strategy to try to save money if you're looking to do that. Okay.
Lynn, I was hoping to jump in real quick about housing
Please
and study
do.
abroad, since I've seen some questions about that. So also, for many of you know that Drexel requires 2 years of housing on campus. So your first year, you're living in the residence halls for freshmen, and then your second year, you're living in Drexel affiliated housing. I stayed in Drexel affiliated housing my entire time at Drexel until my last year when I moved back home. But they are really great. They offer like a lease, like in a real apartment. So their lease is structured that if you are on co-op that is at a 5-mile radius outside of the city, you can actually end your lease and go live wherever you need to go live for co-op, and then your room will be available to you when you return back for classes. So that's really great for students, and it's also great for people who are considering studying abroad. I did that for study abroad. And also talking about housing, the trend I see with a lot of students is their first co-op. They'll choose a co-op in Philadelphia or near home. So they're moving back home or they're staying near campus. They're still involved on campus and still getting the feel for the city. And then when they're a little bit more comfortable with the working scene, they're able to venture out, go out in the country, internationally. So it's just what you're comfortable with. Regarding study abroad, I did study abroad my sophomore year. I did my co-op my junior year. It just takes a little bit of planning ahead of time. I knew I wanted to do both going into Drexel. So I had talked to my academic advisor, my co-op advisor, and my study abroad advisor within my first week at Drexel, actually, so that I could get all three of those experiences, both of those experiences. So those opportunities are available to you. Just take some planning and time thinking ahead. And some people also do co-op abroad. I've had friends who have co-opted in Greece, Belgium, London. So all great opportunities. Each company structures it differently in how they do co-op abroad, but great opportunity if you're interested in that too.
Thanks so much. Did anybody else have an international experience they'd like to share? I mean, Ming is from China, so he's right. This is the international experience. I always want to be thoughtful about that. I used to teach a class and I used to say, you know, does anybody want to study abroad or go on international co-op? And a lot of our international students were like, I am. I'm like, right, of course you are. And how amazing that you're doing that. So incredible. Think about that. Coming from a different country to this country to engage in a co-op program at a school, like just amazing. So incredible. Did learn that David got kicked off. There's storms where he is, so his Wi-Fi is down. I feel bad. He's trying to get back on, so we'll see if he can do that or not. Again, the employers here, you know, rare do we have employers at these kind of events. So I really want to talk to you too about what kind of advice would you give for these students right now? You know, they're thinking about coming to Drexel, and how do they prepare for co-op? They already are probably thinking about, okay, how do I get my first co-op? How do I compete? How do I stand out? What's an employer looking for? Do you have any advice for them?
If I can jump in, I would like to, if anybody is sitting out there looking at co-op as a chore or a fear or something I have to do and I'm not sure to, really, it's all positive. It's opportunity. I think Devni just said that the world is really out there for what you make of it. Yes, there's a database, and yes, it is dependent somewhat on employers like ourselves, that what we put into the system. But if you want to try something, if you want to do something, it's really there. I've had students. I mean, we've kept in touch with our co-ops a lot. I mean, we kind of have a little community. I hear from them. They look for recommendations. They've been on other co-ops and have asked me. We're trying to figure this out. I remember we did this on our co-op, and what I hear from them is, if you want to go to another city, you make it happen. If you want to go abroad, you can make that happen. If you're an international student, but you really want to stay here, you can make that happen. But it does take some of that planning. I think if you go in and you say, you know, if you could do anything, it's think, you know, where might you want to co-op and find out, does there a business like that that's in the system? And if it's not, network. Find people. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Lynn, but any business can sign up to be a co-op at any time. And again, we have done that. We have connected Drexel with partners of ours to help to find more co-ops in the tourism area, because there was a need for that. So I would say that start dreaming, start thinking, where might you want to co-op? And go in and see if that company's there, and then, you know, talk to your advisor and say, hey, do you think there's any chance that we could start some outreach so that by time I'm in my first or second co-op, I would really love to do something at the Philadelphia Zoo. Again, the Drexel co-op office is very engaged. They don't just sit back. I mean, that's the thing I honestly talk. It's not just a computer system. I talk to the Drexel co-op office probably 4 times over email during any process.
Fantastic. And the Philadelphia Zoo is a co-op employer. So there we go. Paul, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I think I just tell, you know, new co-ops joining us is just be open-minded and eager to, you know, embrace the challenges in front of them. I mean, we don't throw anybody to the wolves, and I think it's just a good opportunity for someone to come in and learn how the trades are done outside of you know, an academic environment. It's a great opportunity to network and meet new people and gain experiences of the inside of the actual career that you may be pursuing from other people that are working in the job. And I think it's just, you know, it's a great trial run to get the chance to see what it's really like under the hood of the career that you're trying to get into. And then, and it's also a great opportunity too, because, you know, we've got several people on our structural engineering staff, as well as, you know, throughout the company that we've hired from the co-op program into the company as a full-time employee once they've graduated based on the co-op experience. So I think it's a great way to try out the company. It's a great way to try out the career, and it's also a great way to get a foot up above other people that may be trying out for a position in the company when they graduate. So,
and on that note, if I can, again, we have a 7-person company. We've hired 2 co-ops, so it does work. I mean, you see the work, you keep in touch. We've hired co-ops for temporary work. We've hired them as full-time employees. There is that opportunity for a pipeline. Even if they don't work for us, we have referred them. They've made connections. You know, they've gone to networking events. They've met our clients. So sometimes there's a path that leads, you know, to other relationships.
So
absolutely.
fantastic. Yeah, it's you guys are trying out the employees, saying if, you know, these could be long-term full-time commitments after they graduate, and the students are getting the opportunity to try out the industry, the job, the organization. And I should note, we do have anywhere between 10 and 15% of students change their major after their first co-op. So, you know what, and I always look at that as such a huge positive, right? Because, you know, at a traditional school where you're not doing a co-op, or maybe not doing an internship either, how would you know that you're in the wrong discipline until after you graduate? And then you get your first real job and you're like, oh my gosh, I hate this. Now what do I do? You know, at Drexel, especially if you're in that 5-year 3 program, you get that trial run your sophomore year. And you have somebody, you have a co-op advisor, member of my team to come back to and, you know, check in with while you're on co-op to say, this isn't working for me. Like, I don't like this. I don't like the environment, or something about the work, or it's the people, and my team members help you. They support you in working through it, in learning from it. They also help the employers. Sometimes our employers call us and say, I'm not sure this is working out. And then we help them. We support them in getting through the 6 months in a positive way, in a growth mindset kind of way. One thing I've been asked to mention, because I guess, again, it's a hot question on the chat, is tuition. So tuition at Drexel is the same regardless of whether you choose the 5-year 3 program or the 4-year 1 program, because you're only charged for the terms that you are in classes, and the class terms are the same. For the 5-year 3 program, you're in classes for 12 terms. In the 4-year 1 program, you're in classes for 12 terms. So the tuition is the same. When you're on co-op, you get billed a general student fee. In fact, you get that bill every term, but on co-op, that's the only bill you're getting, is the general student fee. So I hope that clarifies that. David is back on, I understand, which is great. Maybe we could start with him because he was left out of the conversation for a little bit. But, you know, I mentioned when I pitched that question to the employers about how do you recommend students prepare now to compete later? Maybe you guys can talk to students about, you know, is Drexel a really competitive place? Is it sort of dog eat dog, or is it more supportive? Or what's been your experience with that as it relates to co-op?
I think since I'm assigned to go first, I think that there's a lot of it's not competitive at all. It's a very supportive environment, for sure. I think most evocative or most emblematic of this is my experience in architecture, where there's so many parts of it that are collaborative group projects. I think that in architectural engineering and architecture and the AEC industry, you need to be collaborative, and I think Drexel really does a good job of preparing you for that as well. I mean, obviously in architecture, every term you design a building, and so that you have a design project, you get to see a building through to a certain level of refinement. And I know in architectural engineering too, they really model their classes as well on this idea of modeling the real world. So I know this coming term, I'm actually starting a 2-term class called the Architectural Engineering Design, where it's a team of 5, and we all work together to design a building from start to finish. They give us everything we need. They give us geotechnical reports. They give us a site. They give us a program. They give us clients. We actually, I think, we'll have some meetings with people who are going to pretend to be clients. And we get to design a building from scratch all the way to the end as like a mock senior design project. So we get two basically full building design projects, and they're both teamwork. So this one is for the next 2 terms, I'm going to be working with a team of 5 to design a building. And then after that, I work for 3 terms for my senior thesis project, also with the team. This one's going to be 7 looking like, and that's going to be 9 terms of designing a whole project from start to end. So I think it's very true of the engineering, architectural engineering disciplines, where that's very collaborative. But I think that's true of all classes, where they really both model it after the real world, because they know we're going out to co-ops and preparing for the real world. But also we need to collaborate. So for those, they're modeled in group work as well.
Thanks, David. I'm glad you were able to rejoin us. Would anybody else like to talk about the culture of Drexel? And is it competitive? Is it supportive? Or is it something completely different?
I have to agree with David. I think it's, from my experience, it's been incredibly supportive. And, I've gone through 4 or 5 different majors now, and, every major I've been in, it's been incredibly supportive. And I think one thing to touch on is Drexel and the co-op. It's a fast-paced place. And that just is another thing that Drexel helps you to do to prepare for the real world. If you go to a different university, your term would be 15 or so weeks. Here, you have 4 10-week terms, and that's different, but it's helpful because it helps you prepare yourself for the real world. And if you talk to any Drexel alumni and everyone I've talked to, I'm sure they will tell you that that's been one of the best things about their experience from Drexel.
Thanks, Matt.
I would like to echo that. I think overall Drexel is very supportive. And the network here is crazy. As someone, I worked in Merck, and one of my teammates also from Drexel, and you realize how many people actually are Drexel alumni, and they actually, after they know you from Drexel, they will really help you with a lot of stuff. Another thing is like networking. Networking is the most important thing I have learned through all these 3 co-ops. And I think Drexel network is really strong and very supportive overall.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what the 3 of them said, I think everyone at Drexel just wants to see you excel, whether it's your professors or your peers, or your advisors, or the student organizations that you're a part of. Everyone wants to see you excel or whatever you do. And it's extremely supportive. I've never felt overwhelmed. Granted, yes, we are on a quota system, and your first term at Drexel will be a little tougher, but everybody around you will support you, and you'll have help all along. So.
Just to piggyback off of everyone else, I agree with everyone. You see students, you're taking co-op one-on-one classes together, you're interviewing each other, helping each other prepare those skills going into interviews, giving feedback. If you have friends who have taken a co-op and you're looking into it, friends are always giving feedback on their co-op experiences. So everyone's really supporting each other, and everyone knows that for most of us, this is our first interview for the major we're pursuing or the profession we're pursuing. So everyone's in the same boat and just helping each other along the way. And yeah, Drexel is a little bit more fast paced, but you definitely get that first year to adjust to it. And you come back for your sophomore year, you're used to it, you're hitting the ground running, and you're just starting, and you're just gonna find jobs. And definitely just trust the process. For anyone concerned about, if they're gonna get the right co-op, you definitely want to trust the process, and definitely think about time management. I definitely want to stress that you're applying for jobs, you're in classes. So it's a huge reason to have that support system at Drexel, because that is such a major part of it. But it really does prepare you for the long run, when you're applying to jobs without a database, just applying to jobs in the real world, and you already have that backup knowledge. So it's great.
Just to add about the supportive nature of co-op from a staff person's perspective, because of the unique nature of Drexel and your academic plan when you get here, and that it includes co-op, and co-op is such a big part of Drexel and then who Drexel students are. When you get here, you're assigned an academic advisor and you're assigned a co-op advisor. That is extraordinarily unique in higher education. Typically, you have an academic advisor, maybe you have a faculty advisor too. But at Drexel, because of the nature of co-op and the importance of it, and I hear all the time, this is why I came to Drexel. This is, it's a big responsibility, right, for you guys and for us. So you have an academic advisor and a co-op advisor. When you get admitted to Drexel, you're confirmed for Drexel. Those people are assigned to you, and they are your people. They are your people until you graduate, or maybe until you change your major. So we have experts. We have an academic advisor, for example, in history, and we have a co-op advisor that supports history students to find co-op employment. If you change your major, those people might change, but that would benefit you, right? You would want an expert in engineering if you switch to engineering. But that's a really unique support structure at Drexel that I definitely want to make sure you guys understand. It's fast-paced. It's your ambition can't wait, but we provide you with so much support because really, your success is our success, and we want you to be nothing but successful. So yeah, go ahead.
I just want to ask a question, kind of pose that how you might want to position this is, I can imagine the students out there thinking, okay, for 6 months, I'm in classes and I'm super stressed and I have exams and all that. And then all of a sudden I turn on a dime and now I'm working full time. Not all co-ops are full time. And so I think one of the things that I see as a benefit for our students is our co-ops are never hit 40 hours. They're 20 to 30 hours. So I have seen our co-ops where they get the work experience. Some of them take a class. Some of them take it to make more money and get a second or third job. Some of them might get more involved in their extracurriculars. So I think that's, to me, that I find it's very enviable in a way that our students, and they're with us plenty. They are learning plenty over the 6 months, but they actually have other time to do other things. I don't know how Drexel talks about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you pointing that out. So yeah, our students end classes end co-op on a Friday and start classes on a Monday. So they usually get a weekend to sort of take a breath. But those co-op jobs, they can be full-time, they can be part-time, sometimes more than full-time. And often when a student ends their co-op and they come back to classes, their co-op employer has offered them to continue to work while they're on class. Students aren't required to, but they certainly can. And we hear from students that they love that rhythm. And I'd like to hear from you guys. We have a few minutes left, your perspective on that. But the rhythm of, class for 2 10-week terms, and then poof, now I've got work. We've asked students, would you like to be more engaged with Drexel when you're on co-op? And they're like, nah, I'm good. I'm good. I just want to do my co-op. Like, that's where I want to have my head, in that space. And then, maybe they get tired of their co-op, although I don't think I've ever heard a student say they got tired of their co-op. But then by that time, it's time to come back to classes. So it is a nice rhythm students have. Would any of you guys like to speak to that quickly before we have about 2 or 3 minutes left?
So as Bill was saying, I was actually a part-time co-op, which was really great for me. I actually did take one class with Drexel during that time because, pandemic, I had nowhere to go and nothing to do. So I took a class, and I also was able to apply to grad programs during that time. So it was really great, but also, again, just how unpredictable that time was. My part-time actually became full-time towards the end, but, it's just what you're looking for. There's also research opportunities during co-op. But so looking at that transition between co-op and classes, I think if anything, it really just prepares you for the real world and just that real pace and that fast pace and just changing and adapting along with everything else. You're going into classes, your friends are going to co-op. So everyone is switching what they're doing. If you're not switching from co-op to classes, you're switching from one term of classes to another term of classes. So everyone's in that same transition as you are. And again, I think overall co-op really does prepare you going into the future and when you're applying for jobs after graduation or applying to grad school application after college. So yeah.
I think just to add to that, I often find that in periods of like transition between co-op to classes or classes to co-op, I get really excited and motivated, and then everything seems to speed up and I'm a lot more productive. I'm hanging out with more people, like everything's going really well. And I think the fact that it's on 6-month increments, there's enough speeding up that it doesn't, or there's enough speeding up that I'm like, I get a lot done in a year, I think. And I also think though, that it's like a perfect amount where it's 6 months gives you enough time between them so that that transition period does have some weight to it. And Debbie mentioned taking classes over co-op. They're really accommodating to that. I'm taking 2 classes right now while working full-time with Paul and the structural engineering department. You can, whatever you guys need, you're able to get accommodations. I know 2 classes is usually not allowed, but if you work with your co-op advisor, anything that you need for your academic plan of study is totally reasonable. They just want to make sure that every student does co-op correctly and in the way that best suits them. So I was able to easily get to take whatever classes I needed for my plan of study. So that was nice.
So I just really quickly wanted to follow up on what Debbie said. Part of what the strength of the Drexel, the co-op program, is that you have these 1 to 3 moments of interruption and of transition. Transitions are always a little bit uncomfortable, and that discomfort is where the growth comes. So you don't get to just hang out for 4 years and get more and more comfortable. You are perpetually challenged to get comfortable in a new situation, and that helps with grit, that helps with resilience, and it helps you learn how to navigate those moments, you know, because you get practice in it, and those are huge life skills.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Knowlton. So our time for the panel has come to an end. That went really fast. At the beginning, I was like, I wonder how we're going to fill the time. And now I feel like we became fast friends. We could be here all night, just talking about co-op and Drexel and what makes everything fantastic being a Drexel student.